refusing Leonardo DiCaprio's charm, putting a devout Catholic in agony, and finding the sexy in Creatures from Hell. Replacing an actor can sometimes mean a film is in trouble, but for these horror movies, it was for the best. As is the case with many slasher franchises, several actors have portrayed Jason Voorhees, but it's not often that we get the definitive portrayal of an icon 7 movies in. That's the case for Friday the 13th, though. In Part 7, The New Blood, Kane Hodder stepped in. He would go on to play Jason in 3 more films: Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason Goes to Hell, and Jason X. When you think of Jason Voorhees, it's probably Hodder's brutal, animalistic version of the character who comes to mind. Hodder told Inverse that he stood in front of a mirror and tried to figure out what new spin he could put on the character, saying, "That's where I came up with the kind of heaving chest, because even though he's motionless, he still looks like he's about to explode." Sure enough, Hodder's Jason is a hulking force of nature, exactly what the character should have been all along. The 2022 version of Hellraiser seems curiously uncomfortable with the BDSM implications of both Clive Barker's original story and the 1987 film that kicked off the franchise. The original Hellraiser is sadistically and sexually fascinated by bodies, but the new movie feels repulsed by them, prioritizing the grotesque rather than engaging with the implications of the idea that, for the Cenobites, pain is pleasure. The exception? Jamie Clayton's new take on Pinhead. The Sense 8 star turned out to be a brilliant recasting choice when she assumed the character from Doug Bradley. Surprisingly, she told USA Today that she'd never even seen the original until the night before she auditioned for the remake, saying, "I had no idea how sexy it was." While some might say the filmmakers didn't really understand the source material either, Clayton got it. Her Pinhead terrifies in all the right ways, perfectly embodying the Hell Priest's threatening sensuality. Director Mary Harron was preparing her adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis's controversial novel American Psycho when the studio decided Leonardo DiCaprio should play the lead role. Harron told Vice that she refused to meet with him, believing him to be all wrong for the murderous Patrick Bateman. She explained, "I knew I would find him charming, and then I would find myself getting into doing it with him. You have to trust your instinct, or else it's going to be a disaster." Harron feared that the script would be altered to make Bateman more sympathetic. After all, DiCaprio had just starred in Titanic, and Harron worried his fans would expect something totally different from the psychopath she wanted to present. As a result, the studio dropped her as director. Ultimately, DiCaprio left the project after his casting had been announced, which meant that Harron could direct it after all. She got her star, Christian Bale, and the rest is horror history. Perfectly towing the line between steely blankness and undeniable charisma, Bale's portrayal of Patrick Bateman remains one of the greatest villain performances of all time. Kathy Bates won a well-deserved Best Actress Oscar for her role as Annie Wilkes, the disturbed nurse at the heart of Rob Reiner's adaptation of Stephen King's Misery. But the film almost turned out quite differently. A pre-Hocus Pocus Bette Midler was offered the part, but she turned it down, telling Variety that not only was the character too violent, but she wasn't funny enough for Midler. She explained, "The character was so not funny, so without any qualities of redemption. It's a shame Midler couldn't find the humor on the page, but Bates sure did, so it's for the best that the part went to her instead."
They just cheated us! This isn't fair! He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodie car!
Sterling Jarrons played Judy Warren in The Conjuring and its sequel, and she proved perfectly serviceable as the daughter of Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson's demon-hunting duo. However, by the time the franchise got around to 2019's Annabelle Comes Home, Jarrons was simply too old to play the part again. Instead, McKenna Grace stepped in and showed why she's one of her generation's most promising up-and-coming talents. She's precocious yet still childlike, able to fully carry a horror film about a girl and her babysitter being terrorized by a haunted doll. As Grace told Collider, "I do have a big responsibility to live up to because they're so good in all of the other films. I'm like, I hope I do as good as them." In the end, she did. Annabelle Comes Home stands head and shoulders above most Conjuring spin-offs, thanks in large part to her performance. Linda Blair did a phenomenal job playing Regan MacNeil in The Exorcist, and even earned an Oscar nomination. But audiences may not know that Blair had help. Academy Award-winning actor Mercedes McCambridge dubbed over Regan's voice in the scenes in which the fully possessed character babbles all sorts of spooky noises. While audiences expressed concern about Blair's sanity after playing the role, it turns out they should have been worried about McCambridge instead. The Touch of Evil star was tortured by the things she had to make the child say, telling the New York Times, I'm a product of 16 years of convent education, and I'm still a devout Catholic, so speaking those vile, blaspheming words was an agony for me. In the same interview, McCambridge revealed that they did indeed film Blair saying the profane things that Reagan squeals while possessed. Footage of Blair's vocal performance is on YouTube, and it proves that replacing Blair's voice was a good thing.
Well, then let's introduce ourselves. I'm Damien Karras.
And I'm the devil! Now kindly undo these straps.
Haley Lou Richardson stands out in numerous films and shows like The Edge of 17 and the second season of The White Lotus. Aside from a role in M. Night Shyamalan's 2016 film Split, Richardson hasn't really dipped her toe in the horror genre. That almost changed in 2019. Richardson told Backstage that she was considered for the leading role in Ari Aster's sun-drenched nightmare, Midsommar. Producers wanted to meet her. She turned them down, however, unwilling to do a horror film again so soon after Split. Aster subsequently tapped Florence Pugh, whose performance delivered a live wire of grief and torment. She was nominated for an Oscar for that same year's Little Women. But if you ask us, they recognized the wrong film. When Jonathan Demme began preparing his adaptation of The Silence of the Lambs, he knew exactly who he wanted to cast as Clarice Starling. Demme had just worked with Michelle Pfeiffer on Married to the Mob, and he felt she'd be the perfect person to play the FBI agent tasked with interviewing pop culture's most notorious cannibal. But Pfeiffer, it seemed, disagreed, with Demme telling the Daily Beast it was way too dark for her, so Michelle ran away from that part. Pfeiffer also told The New Yorker that she particularly hated the film's ending, which resists the good over evil closure one might expect from a horrific film like this. Instead, they cast Jodie Foster, and the resulting performance won her an Oscar. Her version of Clarice is a no-nonsense interrogator who can spar with Hannibal like no one else. Aside from the 2010 remake, a Nightmare on Elm Street villain Freddy Krueger has always been played by Robert Englund. It's a good thing, too. Unlike most slashers, Freddy talks a lot.
What do you know? I beat my high score.
Englund's performance toes the line between funny and frightening, making Freddy a killer who loves a killer joke as much as he loves killing. As a result, Englund gives probably the most iconic performance in slasher history. It wasn't always going to be this way, however. Titanic star David Warner was originally cast as Freddy, getting far enough in the process that he sat for makeup tests, later shared by Bloody Disgusting. With his background in theatrical training, it's an open question what kind of energy Warner would have brought to A Nightmare on Elm Street. In the original Predator, the late Kevin Peter Hall ultimately played the creature who stalks Arnold Schwarzenegger and friends through the jungle, and he excelled at bringing the Predator's alien physicality through, even buried under layers of prosthetics. Originally, though, then future action star Jean-Claude Van Damme was cast as the Predator, and he even started filming. Speaking with the Stan Winston School of Character Arts, special effects artist Steve Johnson revealed that Van Damme wanted to show off his martial arts skills instead of crafting an alien movement for the character, and didn't realize his role was essentially just a stuntman.
We get him out there for the first shot, and he's just seething.
Van Damme leaving the film led to a redesign of the Predator suit, finally landing on the look fans know and love. Tobe Hooper's original Texas Chainsaw Massacre ranks as one of the best slasher films ever made. The movie introduced audiences to Gunnar Hansen's Leatherface, a frightening chainsaw-wielding cannibal who wears a mask made of human skin. For many TCM fans, Hansen's version of Leatherface stands head and shoulders above the rest of the franchise. However, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 is also great, but Hansen's performance simply would not have fit. Hooper directed the sequel, but this time he went for laughs. In Bill Johnson, Hooper found a Leatherface to match his vibe. Johnson told Joe Blow that he tried to focus on the relationship between his character and his family, an approach the movie needed. Will Poulter, star of Midsommar, was originally cast as the new Pennywise the Clown in the 2017 version of It. Variety announced his casting way back in 2015, when Cary Fukunaga was slated to direct that movie. Eventually, Andy Muschietti replaced Fukunaga. Then, The Hollywood Reporter reported that Poulter was out too, replaced by Bill Skarsgard. Poulter probably would have been a great Pennywise, but it's hard to argue that he should have had the part over Skarsgard, who turned in a deranged, instantly iconic performance in the resulting film. Skarsgard told Collider that he found it difficult to craft his take on Pennywise until he actually settled in the makeup chair. So it's a good thing the filmmakers were able to envision Skarsgard, because it's hard to imagine the movie without it. The opening scene in Wes Craven's Scream is one of the most surprising in all of horror history. Drew Barrymore's death tells audiences that Scream will be a slasher movie like no other, even as it poked fun at the genre by referencing numerous other examples of it. However, Scream almost looked quite different. On The Drew Barrymore Show, Barrymore revealed that she was originally cast as Sidney Prescott, the part eventually portrayed by Neve Campbell. Barrymore claims that she suggested that she play Casey Becker instead.
What if I die and then it'll be like all bets are off, anybody could get killed in this movie?
The casting shuffle worked out well. Campbell's Sidney is one of the best final girls of all time, and without the shock of seeing a big star like Barrymore die first, Scream may not have been as successful as it was. Stephen King wrote Dr. Sleep as a direct sequel to The Shining, following Danny Torrance in adulthood. King famously hated Stanley Kubrick's film adaptation, but writer and director Mike Flanagan smartly recognized that many audiences are more familiar with Kubrick's Shining than King's. In paying homage to both sources, he needed to find a way to flash back to events at the Overlook Hotel in a way that felt familiar. Flanagan ultimately chose to recast Danny's parents, with Alex Essoe stepping in for Shelley Duvall's character, Wendy. Henry Thomas as Jack Nicholson is great, but it's Essoe who really shines. Her portrayal of Wendy contains elements of Duvall's unhinged interpretation, but Flanagan also gives us a glimpse of the Torrances' lives before they reach the Overlook Hotel. Essoe's Wendy is a warm, caring mother, making her eventual shocking devolution into madness even more tragic.